Well, I'm happy that our friends online can join us live again. We are in a rural area and we are at the mercy of our internet service provider here. And since Thanksgiving, the service was down. So sorry about that. You have received the recording, hopefully, no? We are not online?
No, we're okay.
Yeah. So if you have questions.
Francis, what do you think, what's your opinion about people out there that are joyful and happy and have a very fun life, you know, everything seems to happen the way they want, or anyway, naturally to them, but they don't have the essential interest in, they're not interested in truth, but they are happy, you know.
If they're happy, that's the most important.
Because, sometimes I feel like, I'm so lucky that I found this path, that I'm here, I can sit with sages, wow. And then sometimes, like, I feel like, wow, because we heard a lot, the people go through lifetimes, those stories. But I also watch people that are totally not in any spiritual path, they're totally not interested in nothing of that.
If they're happy, that's spiritual to me. Do you know many of those?
No, it's on Instagram, they seems to be.
Check them out.
Well, they seem to be, I mean, I don't know.
But you know, first-hand knowledge, that's the only thing that matters here, not hearsay.
The what? What?
First-hand knowledge is that which is important. People that don't believe everything people say. Check them out.
And another question is...
But if you find happy campers, it's very nice to hang out with happy campers. I mean, who wants to hang out with party poopers?
No, yeah, I know people like physically that are not interested in anything of that, and
do you know?
All is well.
Do you know?
I don't know exactly.
Check them out. See, take a closer look. You cannot ask this question in a hypothetical manner. You see?
So is it true that only sages are real happy? And no one else, they think they're happy, but they're not. What is? Or there can be happy people without being realized sages?
You see, if your happiness depends on something, on your youth, on your health, on your wealth, it's not going to last. But even while you are young, healthy, and wealthy, even during this period where you have a lot of money and you are less than 30, and you are very handsome, you know, there are a lot of people, they have all of that and they are miserable. So I haven't met anybody like you say. So perhaps you have, so bring them in, I'm interested.
No, that's why it was a question.
I cannot only speak from experience. I'm 75, and I've not, the only happy campers in life that I've found that are camping happily for extended periods of time are people who are interested in the truth. They are truth lovers. Other than that, I haven't found any.
Oh, yeah, that was the answer that I wanted to hear.
Yeah, but that's my experience, so I'm open to you bringing some.
No, I don't know. They seem happy. I don't know if they are
friend here
happy.
who is going to be a happy camper and not interested in the truth. We check him out or her out.
It's a test, like. Yeah, and another question is, when you talk about universal consciousness and being identified with a separate entity, so I either am identified with a separate entity or with universal consciousness, because I feel nowadays that is there an halfway between those two things, because I feel like
half pregnant, you mean?
Like I feel like, okay, I'm not a separate entity, but I'm not. I don't
either,
know how to.
Either you're a separate entity or you're not a separate entity.
So yeah, there's no path. There's no halfway.
Either consciousness is limited or it is not. You see, because either, let's put it this way, either consciousness is dependent upon this body and limited by it, or it is not.
Okay, I know it's cliche, but I will have to ask.
No, it's good that you ask questions.
How to be sure that I am universal consciousness? Sorry.
You cannot be sure with the mind. You cannot be sure, but you can be open to the possibility. You don't have to be sure with the mind. But with the mind, you can be sure that it is an open possibility. You see, that you can be sure of. And that's all that is needed. The mind cannot be sure of anything, including this.
So what brings the doubt and confusion is this wanting to be sure that I am universal consciousness. If I let go of this wanting to be sure, just be open.
Yeah, you have to understand that, in fact, number one, the mind cannot be sure that consciousness is universal. And so it's a threshold which is impossible to reach. But there is a lower threshold, and which is that the mind can be sure that it is possible for consciousness to be universal. That there is nothing that proves otherwise, that proves differently. You see? So that the mind can be absolutely sure of that. And this certainty is enough.
So for the mind is a certainty, absolute certainty, that it's like standard, doesn't change.
The mind can be absolutely certain that there is no proof that consciousness is limited. That's all the mind can be 100% certain of.
So all this story of wanting to get the proof that it is universal, it's not going to happen.
A direct, phenomenal proof cannot be found. But a direct phenomenal proof of the opposite cannot be found either. So it cuts both ways. We usually believe to be a separate consciousness. So the moment we are certain that we cannot be certain to be a separate consciousness, we have progressed towards liberation. Because it has created an open possibility for us. You see? And then, who cares about knowing with the mind that consciousness is unlimited? Who cares? Because we are already consciousness. So, consciousness is already what it is. You see, so if consciousness is unlimited, that's already the fact. So, to add a knowledge on the level of the mind that it is unlimited doesn't add anything to it. What is important is not to know that consciousness is unlimited. What is important is for consciousness to be unlimited. So the moment I am open to that possibility, then consciousness can shine for what it is in our lives. And that's sufficient to allow for consciousness to be what it is, truly, without superimposing onto it any limitations. For instance, the limitations to be dependent upon the body. Or the limitations to be infinite. Why not? It's also a limitation. To allow consciousness to be what it is. The moment we superimpose a belief onto it without any evidence, we kind of effectively, in effect, restrict consciousness to the size of this belief. Because a belief is kind of an order that consciousness gives to the universe. So we have to be careful about what we believe. If we don't believe anything about consciousness, we don't give the order, so consciousness can be all it is and reveal itself as such. You see, so that's why it's so important not to... But first to understand that with the mind we cannot have any certainty about the limitlessness or the limitness of consciousness. Lots of S's. But, you know, there is another level on which we know. But it is not on the level of the mind. It is on a more direct level, on what we call the noumenal level. And people get attracted to places like this, to meetings like this. And often they kind of don't know why. And even the ones who think they know why, they don't know why. Because as the mind only believes that it knows, but the mind cannot know why. But they are still attracted by the honey of presence, like bees. You see? And they are all different. Look at us. We look like the UN here. All ages, all levels of genders, all ethnicities, all nationalities, all everything. We're all different, you know? And we get attracted here for all kinds of reasons if we try to find why, you see, but none of these reasons is the real one. And in fact, the real reason is the same for all of us. We share it. But this real reason, the mind doesn't know it.
Perfect, thank you.
So really, they talk about grace. The real grace is not to know that consciousness is universal. The real grace is to be attracted by it. That's it. That's it.
So it's okay because sometimes people ask questions and you answer, and I'm totally in an outer universe because I don't understand, I don't grasp nothing.
It's not a problem.
Like the physical quantum physics question.
All these people, when I say that, it's just for me. It's just I am pleasuring myself.
Got it. Okay, so I'm not lost. Okay, got it. Thank you.
I haven't asked before, so I feel kind of nervous. I have a weird thing. It's going to seem weird, I think. But, like, when you have the experience of whatever you want to call it, consciousness, it's very beautiful. But when I think about it then, when I think about the idea of it's all one, we're all... It's just, there's no separate self. I like that idea because the relating of separate selves drives me nuts. I hate it. But on the other hand, or maybe this is my issue, I think, is connecting. That's my thing, is I want to connect with people, with beings, with things. Anyway, so when I think about it's all one, then in my mind, a strange thing is, then I feel lonely again because I feel like, well, I'm not really connecting, right? I'm not connecting because we're just, it doesn't make sense probably, but it's like if there's another person there, you can connect with them and it's so nice. You can, but if there isn't, if we're all one, then I'm doing to kind of a weird place, huh? But I keep going there, so I thought if I ask about it, it can be made more clear.
But ask yourself, why is it so nice to connect?
That's a good question. That's the thing, huh? Because it feels so...
So what is the joy or the sweetness we experience when we connect? Where does it come from?
Yeah, because sometimes when you relate to another person, or maybe even it's like a business thing or a store or something, and it's obviously, I'm a separate self and I'm making you one, and there's a distance between us and we're doing a thing, and I hate that. But sometimes you genuinely connect with someone, and then it feels like it doesn't feel like there's these two.
And also we feel at that moment, I am not alone. I am not alone.
Right.
Right? But alone is that in that sense means separate, isolated. I am no longer isolated. Because
Right.
I'm connecting, so then I am bigger in my connection than what I believed to be before I connected. Before I connected, I believed to be an isolated cell, if you will. And all of a sudden, in the connection, I realize I'm bigger. So that's why people, they love to talk. As I said, in England, they say, lovely weather, isn't it? You know,
Yeah,
it's
anything.
total bullshit, of course, but
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
but just for the pleasure to agree, you know, on something which is questionable. But yes, indeed.
So then you feel connected to that person for a moment. Or
Well, the joy we experience when we connect with others is because for that moment we lose our sense of separation.
yeah, we do, don't we? Yeah. So that's it feels real.
We enjoy that, but we can connect with nature, we can connect
Yeah.
with an animal, we can connect with a landscape, you see. We can connect with the sayings in a book that have been written by someone who passed away 200 years ago, but we connect. You see, so we all of these, we can connect with music. These are things that take us out of our separation experientially.
Yeah.
The experience of joy, of happiness, of peace, is when we lose our loneliness. You see, what you were saying, we are kind of complaining, yeah, I don't like being alone. But we should make a distinction between being lonely, when I am separate, and being alone. Alone is kind of all one. We are all one, alone, right? Playing with. And then in this aloneness, we connect because we realize our oneness, you know, in the connection. So loneliness and all oneness are different. You know, they are the opposite, in fact.
Right. So it seems like it feels like you are separate, but then you connect. So
Yeah. But when we connect, we are no longer separate. We are bigger than this limited body-mind, you see, in the connection.
But really, we're always connected.
And
The one thing, then
that's love also. Love is when we are bigger than we believe to be.
yeah.
That we realize I'm bigger than that.
Okay. But when I experience that, or sometimes you experience, everything is love.
Yes, and
But
because it's not only with people that we can connect. We can connect with mountains, with the animals, with nature, with concepts, with thoughts, with music, with works of art. We can connect in many, many different ways. In fact, every moment in our lives is an opportunity for some kind of connection. The idea is to remain connected. And otherwise we are desperate, like when the internet is not connected.
But sometimes in some situations, sometimes with people, maybe it's my issue, but sometimes, of course, people don't want to be connected.
Yeah,
They don't want to.
then the connection is lousy. It's only 0.01 megabit per second. It's not sufficient to enjoy a movie.
So I need to just deal with that.
But here, it's very easy to connect.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
here it's a very good preparation to establish easy connection because people are open here. They are
Yeah.
open to connecting. You see, they don't judge you. They don't. They see you as consciousness. You see them as consciousness. The connection is immediate, and then that gives you. That puts you in the new mode of finding a way to connect. And then you see that even with people who are not in love with truth, when you have acquired a lot of connecting experience here, you'll find a way to connect. It doesn't mean they are going to become truth lovers. But
Right.
on the simple human level, you will find ways to their hearts.
I like to tease them. Just notice something about them and make a joke about it.
Yeah, teasing. Some people, they are allergic to teasing, but
some people like it.
most people, they like it.
They
you
do.
know, I notice ladies, they love to be teased, and it reminds me when I was a little boy, I used to tease the little girls, right? So they didn't like when I was pulling their hair, but when I was teasing them, they liked it. So I keep teasing you girls.
We do love it. But I mean in a nice way, in a
And
friendly way.
I mean it also in a nice way. Don't bring the Me Too here.
No, because I think the guys do too. I find that guys like to be teased too, in a nice way.
Perhaps not in the same way.
Not exactly this. Well, from me anyway. Maybe not you.
I'm bad.
Okay. Anyway, okay, can I ask something sort of related to what the last young woman was talking about? You were talking a couple of days ago about, about the experience of, so I might not be saying it right, of consciousness. And I was thinking about it, and you said, when you bring it into your daily life, then, boy, it's going out of my mind. Well, anyway, for my case, I do have sort of an intense experience sometime of love, but then in my daily life, it would be good to. You were talking somehow about bringing it into your daily life, or maybe the idea of consciousness rather than the separate self, and how to sustain more. Because then in my daily life, I tend to get triggered quite a great deal.
Yeah, but sometimes, we have to understand love. There is sweet love and there is tough love. So when the general idea when you connect with people in daily lives is to first offer sweet love, right? But then, if they act as a result of your offering sweet love like jerks,
Yeah.
It wouldn't be loving to condone their hostile reaction to your opening. You see? So then it's only normal to apply tough love in return, not to condone, so that they have an opportunity to realize their jerkiness. You see? So in other words, it's not, I totally disagree with Jesus. You know, if someone slaps you on the left side, you give, no, I mean, total disagreement. Because it is to give them an incentive to do that to other people. You know, so one slap is enough. Not two. Not two. If someone sells drugs, hard drugs to your kids, you are picking them up at the school, are you going to smile at the guy?
No, of course not.
It's not good for your kid, it's not good even for the guy. He's 16 and he's selling that to kids that are 12 or 10. So tough love is to, you know, report to the police or do something like that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think in my case, a lot in everyday life with relating to other people, it's not like they're doing anything that horrible to me, but really they're not, but it's me. I tend to be a little judgmental because I have this thing of wanting to connect all the time, and sometimes people don't want to, and so then
but we have to accept that.
Yeah.
We have to respect that.
Yeah. That's all it is. It's a weird thing. Anyway.
You know, they say in French, we don't attract flies with vinegar.
With what?
We don't attract flies with vinegar to
Yeah.
catch them, you know.
Yeah.
Usually with milk or with honey.
Yep. That's it. Good.
So when you discover the sweetness in you, you know, that we have in common with others, it will make the relations much easier.
Yeah.
People who are not meant to come to you, they won't come. And good riddance. Yeah. And those who are meant to come, they will come. And it will be beautiful and wonderful. So, one benchmark, if you will, of your realization, if you call it that way, is this transformation in your life, in the quality of and the ease of the connection you have with others. How it changes miraculously. You know. It doesn't mean that you have easy connection with everybody, because as I said, there are people who want to play the game of being jerks. And that's their right. But you won't suffer about it. That's their problem, not yours. I mean, that's a problem of the universe wanting to play this game for some time in that body-mind.
Yeah.
And we respect that. You want to be there? It's like you have a child and he wanted badly something to go to that movie theater, and you cannot do it because at that time you have something else to do. And the child then, how do you say that, Buddha? salts. Not suck. The child sucks also. When he sulks, he sucks. But, you are a matter of fact, and if it is your child, after you can tease him a little bit. So, okay, we cannot see this movie, but there is this other one, 3 hours later we can go there, and besides, we can have one of these big popcorn and a full-size Coke. Yeah, it's okay,
Yeah,
I'm not
I think it's
president.
good, yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
This is not a very specific question, but it's personal in the sense that it seems that one of the patterns of my life is that I go through chapters that have structure to them and have a certain goal orientation, and then that kind of completes itself. And then at a time like right now, I find myself sort of in limbo, where there's a lot of possibilities, which is a total blessing because I have freedom and lots of opportunities. But there's that sort of sitting in, what am I really called towards? Or, not what do I want from the universe, but what does the universe want from me? Or how can I... So it's rich, but without much structure, and I'm sort of just waiting, which is part of how I'm here. I just know it's a time of trying to contact inspiration or guidance about the next moves, and so I don't have a very specific question about that, but any kind of guidance that you have about those moments.
Follow your enthusiasm. Discover your enthusiasm. Discover what is it that in this moment that I really would like to be doing. What is it that I fancy? What is my heart's desire? And then take the first step in that direction. And then ask yourself, okay, is my enthusiasm still taking me in that direction? And you may discover yes, or you may discover, there is a little shift there. So then, again, one more step in the new direction. And then ask the same question. So in this way, you will find your path is this path. It's not the path when you start with the stubborn path. Okay, I start with this direction, and I have to be like that. Is that our people who have known in our early years, our parents and so on, they want us to be that way for the rest of our life. It's a straight jacket. I like to be loosey-goosey, You don't know. You don't know what is going to be tomorrow, You don't know what you are going to do tomorrow. You don't know what you are going to fancy. The future has to be bright and open. Not dark and close. Bright because I'm going to follow my enthusiasm. And open because I don't know where it's going to take me.
Thank you.
Hey, Francis. During one of the meditations, you said something about our love, that to question our feelings and to even like the love that we feel that may be directed towards something. I can't remember the exact words, but basically the way that I heard it was, if our love is directed towards, something, to question that. And the way that I felt the understanding was that that the love it's in me at all times, not for what is pointed towards. And then I thought about my two children and the love I have for them. And I guess it was a feeling of knowing that that love is not necessarily for them, because sometimes they can also drive me crazy, honestly, but that it is there. I guess knowing the truth of that, or feeling the truth of that, but also simultaneously, like, it also kind of made me feel sad. I don't know why. And so I just wanted to ask you, that love for them is very real, but it's not about them. Is it because it's not about them as a person or as a child of mine?
You see, love is not a decision we make or something we must do because I'm a father, a mother, a spouse, a child, and therefore it is written that I have to love my children, my partner, my parents, and so on. No. Love is an experience in the moment, you see. You cannot put it in a cage of predefined relationships and so on. It has to be alive, and it is only alive in the moment of the relation itself, you see. So that's very important. Not to think, okay, I love my children, but to make it happen, even a brief moment of experiencing it is much more important. A child can be transformed by a moment of love. A child who has been raised by unloving parents and and he finds a stranger, or at school a teacher or someone who shows true love, and all of a sudden the life of this child takes a totally new turn in one moment. You see, that's why love is an experience. It's not something taken for granted. It's not something that can be codified in books. So it's an experience that we have to strive for in our connections with people, right? And because it's eminently enjoyable by both parties, right? We strive for that naturally. So it's okay to be happy. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not prohibited to be happy. People, when they hear me say that, the goal is happiness, they freak out. They say, this goal is not spiritual. That's not spiritually correct. The goal is to have a hard time here in this valley of tears. That's what is spiritual. But to enjoy life? No. To enjoy relations? No. To enjoy sex? No! To enjoy food, birds, nature, music? No. We are here to suffer.
I guess the thinking, I guess the thinking was, I don't know, almost the connection with them is the love, but I guess in a way it's, I have this belief as a, it's almost like this expectation of love for people that you are so close with almost that can hinder it.
My teacher once told me two important things about love. The first thing he told me was, don't expect anything and you'll get everything. And the second thing is, you cannot buy love. That applies in relationship. If he or she doesn't love you, don't try to buy her or him by doing something they want you to do, for instance. No. You cannot buy love. But don't demand anything, and you'll get everything. You see? With regard to children, most of us, unfortunately, we forget how smart and how mature we were at an early age. And we tend to see our children much younger and immature than they are. Because we have forgotten how the mistakes our parents were making with us. You know, I was in my 60s, and for my mom, I was not quite at 11 yet. Something between 7 and 9.5. And, you know, children, they have ears to hear, they have eyes to see. You know, they know a lot of things. You know, they are not as stupid as we think they are. And they are mature. So the idea is, as a parent, our default attitude towards our children, our loving attitude, is not to be a parent. Our loving attitude is to be a friend, not a parent. Now, there are exceptional circumstances when we become a parent. For instance, with a teenager, when they need money and transportation. Then we become a parent. You know that you can tell that I have some experience, right? Money and transportation. But in most other cases, or pain, physical pain also, you become a parent all of a sudden. And but the rest of the time is friend. And you know that that they held you as a friend. And it's very beautiful when your children come and ask you for advice as a friend, not as a parent. You know? So that. But before they ask you for advice, they have to make their mistakes. So you have to allow for that too. You see? And so what I found, knowing that, is to respect their freedom. because love is about the respect of the freedom. Therefore, it means that at every age, to allow them, for them to have the maximum freedom compatible with their level of maturity. You see? But to give them the maximum freedom compatible with the level of maturity. And what I'm saying, and I'm going to be politically incorrect here, applies mostly to mothers. Because fathers tend to give more freedom. Because they want the kids to be out of the house, to be responsible in the world. And the moms, they want to keep cuddling them and feeding them, you know. and so that's that. So moms here and moms online, remember that. Give them the maximum freedom. And that's very important. If they fall when they are young, they are not going to fall from a great height, and their bones are very flexible. And they are meant to do that, right? They are meant to do that. It's okay, then they will come, they will cry, you come and you take them, and that's it. Now, if you wait, if you prevent them from falling up until they are 21 and 6'5", you know, they may end up in the hospital. And they don't know how to handle this big body of theirs, you know, because they have been kept in a cocoon, you know, the cocoon has grown as they were growing up, you know, but they are still in the cocoon, you know, like a fragile crystal glass, you know. And no.
Thank you.
Be the friend, be the friend. And you have to gain the friendship. It's not easy if you have made mistakes in the past by being too controlling, too authoritarian, etc. We have to do a lot of erasing. I have also questions online. Just 1 second. John, I'm forwarding to you a message for the link. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I feel some kind of, you are a teacher, so we like a bunch of patients. We only greet you with a bunch of questions, and confusions. And so I do want to say, since I'm here for the retreat, I do feel much more connected with the oneness since I'm here. This morning, I still start my day with listening your YouTube stuff and people asking questions. Suddenly, I realize is because I'm totally new for the non-dual, and I cannot write the Abida or something. I never heard that word before I came. But I realize a lot of people, including myself, I ask a question that is very mechanical. So, how we be in the oneness, and it's very abstract questions. In my mind, I was trying to understand, certainly were confusing. And so, like me, I've tried to understand how it works. It's so we fall into mechanical. Eventually, some thought, and this morning coming to me is like, as a human being, I'm not doctor, I'm in IT, used to be. So even I don't understand all the mechanical in my body, still follow the basic instinct. We know what to eat, how to dress, and keep this body healthy, right? So, but I try to not falling into the mechanical, how to be oneness and separate and how that works. Is that the right thing to do?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a dietitian about the body, you know. I do my best with this body, but I make big mistakes also. I had 3 big pancakes with sweet for lunch, for instance.
That's called pleasure.
So it's not a healthy diet. But what is your question? I don't.
I just feel like even if we don't, if I go a route on a different route, I'm not trying to understand all the cells and the molecule and how they interact with each other, all the chemistries. I
Sure,
just say,
okay.
hey,
Yeah, and? So that's a metaphor you are using?
yes. And if I just follow my instinct, I think I will be healthy too. Which is, as long as, you know, I understand that we're all in the oneness and I don't need to go that, how this tangle and how the universe created and all those jungle questions, and we probably can arrive at the same place.
I'm not sure, you know, about following our instinct, because our instinct is conditioned by the past of the species. So our instinct is based upon the preservation of this human body and also the perpetuation of the species. So these are the 2 fundamental aspects of instinct, because of the way the laws of evolution work, is that the individuals who exhibit this type of qualities tend to survive, and up until they reach the age to procreate, and so there is a natural selection that takes place. So if we follow that, we may be adapted to living in packs or in herds, in caves, you see. But for instance, we may overeat. If this dog, we feed him as much as he wants, you see, he will follow, and we can trust that he is going to follow his instinct. But a dog in nature, you know, they don't always have a prey to feed on. So so the point is, I'm not sure that your instinct theory
I think
works.
that I didn't make myself clear. The instinct is really only it's after you connect it, and then you follow the instinct come from the upper, not from this animal body.
No. So not the animal instinct, because in my book, instinct means animal instinct.
Right. Yeah, I mean the
I
connection.
would call it intuition or something else, but not instinct. So I misunderstood your question.
Right, and also another thing is I feel like we talk a lot of mechanical things, you know, but I didn't heard, maybe I still don't have the full picture at all for about the non-dual things. So I didn't heard about about love and compassion, which is, I feel like when I talk to there, I feel the most important thing when I talk to them is most of the time they're very patient, they're very loving, and the lot of compassion. That's a teaching they give it to me. It is the very first important element. They're not teaching me how to, this mechanical thing. But so for that, it's like, am I sidetracked? Am I misunderstood the teaching? Or how about the teaching and teaching us about the approach for the love and the compassion for non-dual?
Love is not for the individual. There is an ancient Upanishad, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, in which the rishis, the seer, the sage, if you will, is asked by one of these wives. He has two, actually. Maitreya and Kokoyanis, or something like that, if I remember. And she wants to be loved, and he answers, it is not for the sake of the spouse that the spouse is loved. It is for the sake of the self that the spouse is loved. It is not for the sake of the son that the son is loved. It's for the sake of the self. In other words, and it goes on like that because it's an Upanishad. But yeah, it's a song, you can keep singing it. The idea is that which we love in people is their reality, their real self, which is the consciousness. We don't love the people. We love the life in them. We love the intelligence. We love the love, you see.
Well, love should be unconditional. So if we say we only love the people when they are intelligent and when they are pretty and beautiful or strong or whatever.
No. The same consciousness shines in all.
Right, I
So,
agree.
for instance, when the consciousness doesn't shine, it's when you have a corpse. Do you love corpses?
It could be. No, because
There are
the
many
love
options.
is everywhere, And I don't see corpses different from the floor, they're all matters.
Well, usually people, they don't love corpses. They love...
For me, they're matters, like my body, live or dead, they're matters.
But that's the point I'm making, is that we don't love the body. Because when the life force has left the body, when the consciousness has left the body, we see that, for instance, in the presence of the dead body of a loved one, we know very well the loved one is no longer there. The mortal coil has been left behind, but that which we loved has left. You see, that's a very interesting experience.
Well, yeah, it's that I will say the some active ingredients left that body. The body itself is still included in the oneness, is still in the oneness. It's not separated, not because it's no certain substance in the thing, and we love them less.
Anyway, I in my case, I like the company of living people. I don't like very much the company of corpses. If I would be in a different business. I would be a mortician.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's it. Let's see. Peter, as you explain the difference between happiness in ignorance and in wisdom, is that in the first case the happiness is allegedly derived from an object, whereas in wisdom it is recognized as an aspect of our true nature. There seems to be another difference. Your favorite examples of happiness in ignorance are the playing children or the guy who suddenly has the money for a Ferrari. In these cases, and in many others that I can think of, a wedding, favorite sports team wins a championship, there seems to be some agitation present with the happiness. This is probably not true for the sage whose happiness is experienced against the background of peace. Could you please comment on this difference? Well, I think happiness has two aspects, a static aspect and a dynamic aspect. The dynamic aspect of happiness is joy, and the static aspect is inner peace. But you cannot truly experience joy without a background of inner peace. For instance, if you have in the background some lingering worries, the joy in the foreground is not going to be unalloyed. It's going to be mixed. So that's the inner peace is kind of a prerequisite for true joy. Now, the main difference between the derived happiness from the happiness which is derived from the acquisition of an object is that it is very short-lived. You get the Ferrari and after 3 days it's mostly a car. It's no longer a Ferrari, it becomes a means of transportation. So, Tom, you have said many times that one has a flash of experience of being consciousness, and that mortally wounds ignorance. So does one never really completely or permanently live with that awareness of being consciousness? And it is always a battle to remember that they are. No, once you see the reality of consciousness, its independence from any object, that it cannot be affected by any object or event. First, this glimpse can never be forgotten. And it brings about a change in our habits, in our patterns. So certain patterns of thoughts or fear, for instance, may run for some time. But every time they will end up at the same place, which is this recognition of our eternity, unshakability, invulnerability. And they will collapse. And at some point, they lose their grip on us. So that's how this glimpse works. Still Tom. I think most humans feel when they suffer or have guilt that they make mistakes. Wouldn't that be true in a certain sense? Well, the sense of guilt is an internal suffering. It is very different from having to face the consequences of past actions. That's a different story. But the sense of guilt relates to the belief that whatever I have done in the past, I had the choice and the freedom not to do it. And that I have decided to do it when I shouldn't have done it. And as a result, I feel bad about the decision I have made as a person. But then, if we realize that as a person, as a human body-mind, we don't control our thoughts. They come to us. They are cosmic events, just like the rain tomorrow. They are just cosmic events. They come to us. So, it should be that if we feel responsible for our past thoughts and the deed that followed the decisions we made, we should also feel responsible for the flooding of the rain, or for the hurricanes, or the earthquakes. Of course, it doesn't make sense. The moment we understand that our thoughts are cosmic events, the sense of guilt goes down the drain. So it's good because it's liberating for us not to feel guilty. But it's also good for society, because if we understand that we are not guilty, we understand that everybody around us is not guilty either. So it creates, it's conducive to a loving society, to a society who is not acting like a prosecutor. We don't prosecute other people. We don't sit in judgment of others. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't put serial killers behind bars. Of course, we should, to protect society. That's a different story. But ultimately, love is the understanding that we are all innocent. The understanding of our innocence and of the innocence of others. So there is no judgment. That's important. It doesn't mean also that in the now we are not responsible for our decision. In the now, as universal consciousness, yes, we have to do our best to make a decision that is in line with consciousness being shared by all. And this decision will be loving, will be intelligent, will be also aesthetic. I'm through with my stock of questions here online. Yes. Mike?
Okay, similar to the question of guilt that you just answered, what if it was a feeling of regret and then the consequences that you're suffering? Would it kind of fall into the same understanding? That you also didn't create those thoughts or decisions that were made?
Well, the consequences correspond to a current situation, right? And whether we regret or not doesn't change the current situation. So regret is just useless dead wood. Right? It has no efficiency in the current situation. It doesn't help. It doesn't help us making the appropriate decision regarding the current situation. So the current situation is brand new, and the decisional process and the ethical process is to decide from what to do from the impersonal vantage point. So that requires a complete welcoming of the situation in all its aspects, the external aspects, the situation in the world, the internal aspect, our feeling about it, etc., our inner voice, our intuition, all of that being considered from the vantage point of an impersonal arbitrator, if you will, who sits in judgment of that and who wishes well for all, and also who is very fair, very intelligent. And then what would this arbitrator suggest for us to do in this situation? And then that will be the decision, you see? And that's one way to look at it. And often I say also, if that seems too complicated, try in your decision to reconcile intelligence, love, and beauty. You know, to decide what is intelligent, loving, and aesthetic. So if we just make a good faith attempt in this direction, already our decision will become sacred in a sense. And then the most seemingly entangled situations, the seemingly most difficult situation, kind of eventually will find a serendipitous resolution, because that's the type of experiment that we can conduct, which are open to us. And it's very interesting to see the magic of it, when we have the courage to do that.
Thank you.
My experience since I started understanding the truth, or actually since I understood the truth to the point of actually living it fully, 100%, is not a straight path. It was actually a part of time where it dropped off and became a secondary thing, and then it became again the primary goal. And I'm wondering if this is something that I should be actively focusing on. Well, focusing is the wrong word, because just the knowing that you shouldn't stray away from this path. So my question is, can you speak more about this oscillations that are happening instead of having a direct path from the point of understanding the truth versus living it fully?
Well, it's like if you study computers, it's not enough to study the theory, how a computer works, the memory, the RAM, the CPU, all of that stuff. You need to do some programming. You see what I mean? You need to really do this, and so it's the same here. The theory, the yoga, reading books, watching videos, all of that is nice. It's very interesting. But you really take off the moment you try to apply that in your life. And even if in the beginning you do it just a little here and there, then it will very quickly transform your life. I wouldn't worry about being focused on it. Some people, they start the truth as a hobby among others. From time to time, I go see Francis, that's fun on weekend. And other people, once they hear about it, they have a first encounter with it, they, immediately they are one-pointed. You see, no matter how we started, it is not something which we can command. But it is something that at some point, if we ask ourselves, what is my highest priority in life? And the answer will be very clear, very, 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 that's the truth. That's my priority. Everything else is, and even if at that moment it seems that we don't always live in accordance with it, or even most of the time we don't live in accordance with it. The fact that we have reached this priority, this one-pointedness, this priority in our life, there is never going, we are never going back from that. Never, it's not possible. The more we try to apply it, the faster we progress on the path then. So it's optional. But it's important to live it. That's why to think that often people make a mistake, they say, oh, I should stop my activities and instead I should be in my room and do yoga 24/7 in my room, meditation, only do that. That doesn't make sense. Because it's like doing only the theory and never conducting the experiments. You cannot do physics like that, you see, or any science. You need to conduct experiments. You need to always, whatever theory you have, to check it out in the lab. So that's why, and if you try to live an artificial life, the life of a monk or the life in a cave or whatever it is, there is this story of the guy, he lived 30 years in a cave in the Himalayas, you know, and then he goes back to Delhi, and some guy in the crowd, you know, going into the bus, walks on his feet, and he gets very angry. And he has spent 30 years in the cave without anger. You see? And then he tells the guy who has walked on his feet, thank you very much, because you just taught me something that in my cave nobody has taught me. So we need, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? So that's why Sri Atmananda, he was a police chief, and he would say, I think he was joking, but he would recommend for a truth seeker for a few years to take a job in the police force or in the military, because the idea was if you can make it there, you can make it everywhere, you know. It's a New York type of thing. So either you go to New York, or you work in the Trump administration, or yeah, or you join the police force or the Marines.